Hey there, friends. It's John, and I want to welcome you to this special Listener's Commentary podcast. This will be a fall 2023 update, just giving some things we're working on, where the podcast stands, some answers to some questions people have asked, as well as ways that you can help more and more people discover the podcast. And so let's just jump in with kind of where we're at on the podcast. This has been a huge project working on the Listener's Commentary that has taken a ton of time, a lot of energy. It's been pretty relentless. And on last week's episode, we wrapped up the letter of Titus, which also means we wrapped up the entire body of Paul's letters of the New Testament. And I don't know about you, but that makes me feel like I want to clap and applaud. It's a huge achievement, a lot of work, and it's a real milestone. We have made some great progress, and really all that remains now on the podcast is the Gospel of Matthew, and then the Gospel of John, the letters of John, and the book of Revelation. That's what remains. And so after all the last handful of years of working on the Listener's Commentary, we're down to the final 6 books of the New Testament to complete. And 3 of those books are large and complex books, and so they're going to take a decent amount of time. I imagine sometime between the next 18 to 24 months, we will finish the entire New Testament on the commentary. So a huge progress, big milestone, super excited with where we're at. And that leads to a question that I've gotten numerous times, in particularly the last year, from people who subscribe to the commentary and have emailed me, people who I've met in person who have asked me. And the question is this: are you ever going to do the Old Testament on the commentary? And the answer to that is, well, when I first started this, my expertise has always been the New Testament. That's what I've spent most of my career teaching at the college and all of that. And so I really wanted to focus on the New Testament, and yet I see a massive need for some guidance and some help with the Old Testament. So here's what I'm praying about and thinking about, and here's what I would invite you to pray along with me on, is that if the Lord should allow, and if it makes good sense, I'm thinking that maybe what I'll do after I finish the New Testament will take some time. I want to create some more resources for the study hub after I finish the New Testament. And it'll definitely be a little bit slower. But what I'm thinking about doing for the Old Testament maybe is creating what I like to call kind of reader's guides to books of the Bible. So not as much detail as I provide with the New Testament, where we're going through it verse by verse, paragraph by paragraph, really digging in and looking at it. Not that much detail, but enough to really help you read the Old Testament well. And so to take a book and say, here's the backstory, here's when it was written. So give a whole backstory like we do on the New Testament, give an overview, maybe even make that a whole separate section where we give a bigger, more extensive overview of the book so you have kind of the lay of the land and the map. And then work through the big chunks of that overview, just saying, here's what's happening in each chunk, and pointing out some of the historical and cultural stuff. So just a handful of recordings, depending on the size of the book, that provide kind of a tour and a walking guide through the book. That's what I'm thinking about doing with the Old Testament. And so I'm praying about that, thinking about that. And so if you want to join me in that, based on the feedback I've gotten, people have told me, man, that still would be really, really helpful. So that's what I'm thinking on that. I would love to hear your thoughts, your feedback. If you want to shoot me an email on that, and I would love your prayers for that if you want to join me in praying about that. So that's a key question. Old Testament Listener's Commentary seems like maybe it's a good idea. Another update that I think will be really helpful is I have learned that a lot of people prefer to even listen on YouTube. And so even though the Listener's Commentary is audio and not video, it seems like a number of people would want it on YouTube to just listen there, even though they can't, there's nothing to watch, right? one of the cool things about YouTube is it's actually easier to organize. You can create playlists based on the individual books. And so rather than having to scroll through the podcast to find Philippians clear back at the beginning or Ephesians somewhere in the middle, right? I can just have an Ephesians playlist. I can have a 1 Corinthians playlist and so on. And that makes it a little easier to jump in and say, okay, I'm working through this particular book of the Bible. What does John say about that? And so I'm slowly beginning to convert the files over to the proper file format and upload them to YouTube. And so I've got a Listener's Commentary YouTube channel. Got my own YouTube channel where I was experimenting with that a few years ago. And I may add some of the commentary there just to honor those 1,600 subscribers on that YouTube channel. But I'm also building out just a Listener's Commentary YouTube channel. Has like 40 or something subscribers, so it's brand new, hardly anyone there. And if you're one of those who would prefer to listen on YouTube, man, it would be super helpful if you would just go search for the Listener's Commentary on YouTube, find that Listener's Commentary YouTube channel, subscribe to it so that we can get to that 100 subscriber mark, and then I can actually name the channel Listener's Commentary to make it easier to find and all of that for people. And I'll just slowly keep uploading them. So I've got all of 1 Corinthians up on that. I am, last week and this week, I've been converting over Ephesians into the proper file format and getting those ones set up. And I'm going to start scheduling those out and releasing those on that YouTube channel. And Lord willing, over the next year or so, I'll be able to get the majority of the Listener's Commentary up on YouTube. And so if you're one of those who would prefer to listen on YouTube rather than on Podcast Player, please swing over to the Listener's Commentary YouTube channel, subscribe to that. Let's get that thing up to 100 subscribers so we can put the Listener's Commentary name on it and help people find it a little bit easier. Also, another way that you, hopefully before too long, will be able to listen to the Listener's Commentary is Olive Tree Bible software and Olive Tree Bible app, Bible study app. They sell resources. They also have some free resources. They learned about the Listener's Commentary and was like, man, we have nothing like this on our platform. And they wanted to add it to their platform. And so I've signed paperwork with them. And it'll be free on the Olive Tree Bible software platform, Bible study platform. Hopefully that's coming soon. The last report from their lead of digital marketing and all of that is that they've got a lot of projects in the queue right now. And so he's thinking maybe the first part of 2024, they should get that up and operational on Olive Tree. And so if you are a person who studies the Bible on Olive Tree, the Listener's Commentary will hopefully before too long be able to be accessed there. And once it's on Olive Tree, I think I will use that as a little bit of street cred to reach out to Blue Letter Bible and Bible Gateway and see if they want to add it to their platforms as well, just to make it more accessible to other people and as another way to help people access it, discover it, and learn about it. So that's something to pray about as well. Just to pray that the Lord would continue to open doors for people to find the Listener's Commentary on these various Bible study platforms. So excited about that. That is some good news there. And so I am looking forward to that. And I also wanted to share with you just some things that I'm kind of thinking about, things that maybe at times weigh on me with regard to the Listener's Commentary. One of them is the whole idea of transcription. Would it be helpful to transcribe the audio files and turn them into like basically a book, a written commentary, even though they're a Listener's Commentary? Some people have told me that it would be really helpful if there was something like that so they could go back and they could say, I just want to check out this one section, and they don't have to kind of try to, zoom through it and figure out, okay, where are we at in that clip or whatever else. And so I thought about transcription. Maybe there's another way to achieve the same objective. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And so if you've got some opinions on transcription, if you've even got some advice or some input on the most affordable way to do that, I'm just not super familiar with all the tools and resources for that. But that's something I've been thinking about and wondering if that would be valuable or not. So I'd love to to hear some of your thoughts on that and just to kind of figure that out. One of the things that weighs on me is adding more and more resources to the Study Hub. I try to create some of these, at least initial resources as I go and as I'm writing the notes and preparing my thoughts for each of these commentaries. And so I get some initial ones done, but then I move on to the next book. And man, there's just a lot. It's just been kind of relentless, and there's a lot to do in order just to stay up with the weekly grind of producing the commentary. And I want to add more resources to the Study Hub. And so, again, I would love some of your input on that. What would be some things that would be super helpful? Or if you're reading through a particular Bible book and you're listening to the commentary and you would... if you're like, man, I would love to have this question answered that wasn't answered on the commentary, shoot me that in an email. That'll direct some of my time and energy into what to create for the Study Hub. Just know this, that I am working on that. It's a lot of work. I'm mostly a one-man show. I've got a little bit of volunteer help and tiny bits of help here and there, but not tons. And so I would just love to hear some of your thoughts on that. So we'll keep adding more to the Study Hub as we can, as I come across more things that I think would be helpful. I'm linking pages and articles and blogs that I think would be helpful to specific things. And so I keep trying to pull some of those things together. So there'll be more coming on that. That weighs on me at times. I thought about doing some Q&A, some question and response type things for supporters of the listener's commentary. And again, it just weighs on me. I'm just like, would that be helpful? Would that be a good use of my time? Would that be something that would be beneficial to you? I would love to hear your thoughts. I do get emails from people asking me specific questions. Got an email last week from someone wondering if I ever do Q&A, or if they could email me some kind of Q&A. And so I know there's some of that out there. I just would love to hear your thoughts on that. I think it'd be valuable, if for no other reason than to connect, particularly with those of you who are regular supporters of the ministry, that feel like as regular supporters, you kind of get some of the behind the scenes and a little bit more interaction. And so I think that would be valuable, but I'm not 100% certain. But I'm wrestling with that. And sometimes people just have really specific questions. Wanting to know my thoughts on something, wondering about a specific passage, or wondering how does this passage apply in their specific situation. And so I'd love to engage with you all on that. I find question and answers very helpful. And so I'm just chewing on that, thinking about that, trying to figure out a way to do that well. And again, would love to hear some of your thoughts on that. Here is the biggest thing you could do at this point for the listener's commentary, and that is this. You can be a great resource in helping more people discover the commentary. So if you've been blessed by it and benefited from the commentary, then one of the biggest things you could do is help other people discover it. How could you do that? Well, one of the ways you could do that is you can rate and review and share it. And so on your podcast player, your podcast app, whatever you use, if they have a rate and review function, somehow in this weird digital space and age we live in, that really does help that get promoted and thus more searchable and thus more discoverable for people. So just go in and rate the podcast, give a review, type up a short little review of how the podcast has helped you. Share it on your social media channels, your Facebook, your Instagram, or whatever social media channels you use. Share it that way. Here's one of the biggest ways you could help people discover it. If you have an email list, would you send out a recommendation to your email list about the listener's commentary as a resource that'll help people learn and live the Bible? If you have your own podcast, would you on your podcast recommend the listener's commentary? Or if you want to have me on your podcast and just do an interview about the Bible and Bible study, or you have a specific question about the Bible that you want to explore on your podcast, man, I would be happy to consider that. Shoot me an email and let's see if we can't get that scheduled. If you have a blog where it's appropriate for you to share about the listener's commentary, write about it on your blog. And so rating and reviewing and then sharing on whatever media or channels or ways you can. Text it to your friends list who are, in a Bible study with you or whatever else it is. Share the listener's commentary. Anything like that would be super helpful to enabling more people to discover it. And also, as always, just pray for it. Pray for the commentary. Pray for God's blessing and favor on it. Pray for God to bear much fruit through it. Pray for God to open doors and help more people all around the world discover it. People that could definitely be blessed by it and encouraged by it. And so would you do that? Would you join with me in praying for the listener's commentary, that God would bless it, pour out his favor upon it, bear good fruit through it, glorify the name of Jesus through it? And so that's really my ultimate goal. My ultimate heart is that somehow through this ministry and this work, God's name would be exalted. The kingdom of Jesus would go forward. People would learn the Bible in such a way that they can live it out more fully and completely. So that's the goal. That's the heart. And if you would join me in praying about that, that would surely bring God's goodness and favor, and he would bless it as he sees fit. So thanks a ton for your partnership in this ministry and this work. Thanks for being faithful listeners and supporters in whatever way you are of the listener's commentary. I'm super excited to jump into the Gospel of Matthew beginning this very week. And so we're going to start the Gospel of Matthew. We'll have the backstory coming out later this week, and then we'll begin working through the text of Matthew. Matthew is a huge gospel. Matthew historically has been the most popular gospel because of all the teaching of Jesus in it. It has been used as really a discipleship manual since the beginning of the church. And so super excited to jump into the Gospel of Matthew and to begin working through the text of that. And that's coming in the next few days here on the Listener's Commentary. So God bless you guys. Thanks for partnering with me in the Listener's Commentary ministry. I look forward to sharing more and more of these studies with you in the days ahead.